And we're back with our final session in Room B for the day. Our last speaker is JayBrian from JayBrianSpeaks, and his presentation is on getting engaged for keeps, 7 ways to increase learner engagement in a virtual setting. Jay, take it away.
So, you all, I remember the day that I got engaged to my wife, and it was an immediate flurry of activity. So I remember I came up to her, I proposed, I had the ring. She got excited. She was like, that's the sound she made. I don't know if anyone else makes those kinds of sounds, but that's what she did when I proposed to her. So we started to rush. We were like, okay, well, we need to book the venue. We need to go and get somebody to do this, do that. And one of the main things we got immediately was we got some premarital counseling. So we went to the first session, and the first thing the counselor told us, he said, you know what, when you were just dating your wife, when you all were just boyfriend and girlfriend, that was like one level of connection, if you will. That was just one level. But then now that you're engaged, it's a whole different level of connection. It's a whole different level. So getting engaged, it has a big return on investment, you all. When your learners are engaged, not necessarily to be married, but when they're engaged, it has a big, big ROI. So there was an article done in 2021 by crossknowledge.com, and they found that the ROI on learner engagement was huge. They found that it helped with employee retention. They found that it helped with improving job performance of the learners. And it also found, get this, that it helped to improve the employees' job satisfaction overall. It made them enjoy where they were working and want to stay at the company that they were at. So here's the thing with learner engagement. Here's the deal. Oftentimes we already have the skills. No, forgive me. You all already have the skills to engage your learners. That's not the main reason we're here today. The main reason we're here today is because you want to learn, how can I take those same skills? How can I get that same engagement, that same connection, if you will, in a virtual setting? How can I do that in the virtual world? How can I keep that engagement high so that my learners can want to stay with the company, enjoy the information they're learning, get better satisfaction from their job? How can we do that? So, you are a couple of things. Couple of things. There was a survey done in 2021 by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. And they found that as soon as the pandemic hit, immediately, right then and there, boom, there was an 18% decrease in participation in workshops and employer-led learning. Just right then and there, as soon as the pandemic hit, 18% decrease. And it was found that in order for us to get back to where we were with learner engagement in person, take a look at this. Read this quote to yourselves. This is a quote from that same article. This was part of their findings. We have to do the same type of engagement, but we have to do it in a new setting, because the success, whether we win or lose, whether our learners win or lose, it's all going to come down to how well we adapt to the technology and how well we adapt our teaching methods, the way we relay the information to the trainees, the way that we work with our learners to that new setting. So the question becomes, how do we do that? How do we get engaged in a virtual setting for keeps so that we can retain these employees, these learners, and make them have that increased satisfaction and that increased appreciation for what they're doing. How do we do that? Well, there are a few different ways. The first way is to know your platform before the class starts. So when I was in high school, you all, I was a member of the speech and debate team. I don't know if anyone here was a member of something like that at your high school. And I had to go to this competition where we had to do a basically a story with a partner. So me and my partner, we had this story that was given to us, and we had to prepare for it. We had to present it. We had to know all the characters, how they spoke, because we had to act it out, and we had to convey emotion. We had to convey what was going on, the setting, all that stuff in this story. We had to convey it, as partners. And so even months before and weeks before, I knew I had the competition coming up. We knew, but we didn't really practice like that. I just went on and decided to go for it, and just I was like, I think I can do it. I can do it. I can convey this stuff to them. It's not a problem at all. I can get them engaged with this story. And so we went to the competition. We went up to present our story, and as you can probably guess, put in the chat what you think happened. Put in the chat what you think happened. Type it in the chat. Now I can't even see the chat, but you probably guessed that we got first place. No, we didn't get first place. So we bombed. We completely bombed. Like it was terrible. We were like, because we didn't know the nuances of our story. We didn't know the characters. We didn't know the features of the story. We didn't know how the story worked. We didn't know anything about it. So when it comes to these virtual platforms that we're using, we're expected to engage learners on, we have to know the features. We have to know how they work. We have to know how to share our screen, how to use the audio, how to do a poll. We have to know how to do these things. And how we do that is we take time before we even have a class on this platform, before we train someone, before we work with a team or a meeting or anything like that. We want to get on the platform and know what we're doing. That's part of why we had tech checks before we got up here to speak. We have technical checks so that we can make sure Liz, Jamie, everyone at Torrance Learning wanted to make sure we knew exactly how these things work, so that when we present it to you all, you'll get the information you need, and we know how to do what we needed to do. So in order to be able to keep the engagement high, first thing you're gonna have to do is know the platform that you're using before the class starts. Now, Robert Cialdini, he wrote a book called Influence, and he talked in the science of persuasion. And you all can read this little snippet that I have here. But while you're reading it, I just want to talk about what's so important about this. So, you all, in his book, he said that people, and I always tell my trainees, my learners as well. I say trainee because I'm a corporate trainer. So my learners, I always tell them, I say, hey, you all, we're gonna set some expectations before we get going. And that's part of the next point of how we keep virtual learner engagement high. We had to set some expectations. Why? Because people, that last sentence that's in bold, people live up to what they have publicly said they will do and what they have written down. They're going to live up to it. When I used to work at a place where I used to be a job coach, I used to job coach people into getting employment, all kinds of places, help with job interviews, all kinds of things. But one of the parts of the paperwork we used to have to fill out was an agreement. And it was a basic agreement. It was saying that, we won't give your information away. We will never discriminate on the basis of race or anything like that. It was an agreement, and we had to sign it, and the client had to sign it. Why? Because if anything ever happened, God forbid, if anything ever happened and that client or an employee came back and said, oh, well, This person did this to me. Well, we have an agreement right here that's already signed that you have already agreed to, whether you as me as the employee or the client. There's an agreement already that you stated what you're going to do. And then also I had my wife laughs at me because I literally am a big goal oriented person and I have what's called a goal book, right? And she makes fun of me because what I write down in my goal book kind of comes true. I'm not magic or anything. I'm not saying that, but I have a little book of goals that I write stuff in, and she sees it and she's like, "Are you writing that book again? Stop writing in there, because whatever you write in there is going to happen." I remember I wrote down, "Oh, I'm going to have a son and a daughter," maybe 5 or 6 years ago, and now I have a son and a daughter. It's crazy, right? But what I want to point out there is that what I wrote down ends up happening. I end up working towards it in some way, whether that be a business goal, anything like that. I end up working towards it, whether it be a career goal, making sure to become the best corporate trainer, making sure to engage my learners. Whatever happens in there, whatever I write in there, I live up to, or I do my best to live up to. So with that being said, that brings me to my next point, you all. To make engagement, to keep the learner engagement high virtually, you have to make engagement a must by setting expectations. Now, you may set expectations already as a trainer yourself or a learn L&D professional. You may set expectations, but how do you set expectations for someone to be engaged? Well, you tell them, I always tell my trainees, I say, "Hey, guys, I expect participation. Can you all do that?" And the learners always say, "Yeah, that's no problem." As small as that sounds, I also send it to them as well. I send it to them in an email and I say, "Hey, respond with a received or a yes that you received this information, that you said you were going to participate." Now, why do I do that? Because when they agree to it, I've set the expectation that, oh, they're going to engage. They're going to be engaged. Now, that doesn't mean 100% every time, but they are more engaged as learners than they would be had I not set the expectation. They are way more engaged than they would be had I not set the expectation up front. So that's the second point. Make learner engagement a must by setting expectations. So a few years ago, I was wondering where I wanted to go with my life, and I ended up doing research about possibly entering the military. If you're a veteran in here, thank you so much for your service. I truly appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. I was thinking of going into the military. I was actually thinking of going into the Air Force. Some things happened that didn't work out, but when I was talking to my recruiter, one of the first things he told me was, "Hey, man, before you do anything, before you go start doing your job in the Air Force or go overseas, you're going to have to go to basic training." Why? So you can learn the basics, the bare minimum basics of what you need to do. So you all, when it comes to helping our learners stay engaged virtually, in order to do that, the third thing we have to think about is discuss and practice the applicable basics of the platform with your learners. That means if you use AirMeet, for example, which is the platform we're on now, if you use AirMeet, you want to show your learners or the people that are on the platform, hey, how do you chat? How do you do a reaction? Because if I'm going to ask you to put something in the chat, I guess we're going to have to know where the chat is, right? That's why I always tell my learners, I always tell them, I say, "Hey, this is how you share screen. This is how you annotate on the screen. This is how you raise your virtual hand. This is how you private chat." Why? Because if I'm going through presenting my information, facilitating something, and I say, "Unmute yourself and answer this if you know the answer." What if they don't know how to unmute? Why wouldn't they know how to unmute? Because I hadn't explained the basics. So take about 5, maybe 10 minutes at the beginning of your presentation or your class and just show your learners the basics. Take them through some basic training of the platform that you'll be using. And that's going to make all the difference, because when you ask them to engage, unmuting, annotating on the screen, turning on and off their cameras, raising their virtual hand, they'll know what to do. They will know what to do in those situations. The next way to keep learner engagement high is to use brain breaks. Use brain breaks to give learners a chance to step away from the technology that they're using. Now, brain breaks are a hit, you all. They're a hit in every class I've ever taught. All learners love them. And I call them brain breaks because, y'all, we're scientifically, they found that we're not meant to be looking at screens like this virtually all day, every day. You all may already feel that. If you get headaches or anything like that, or you get what's called Zoom fatigue or anything like that, you may already know it probably feels weird. It felt weird or feels weird to adjust to a virtual setting, to be looking at a screen all the time. All right, so we're going to watch a quick video that talks about that, and then we're actually going to implement this together.
This is one defining phrase. In this work from home era, this is one defining phrase.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you, Thomas. Nice to meet you. You can hear me okay?
Physiotherapist Matthew Lang is seeing the consequences of a full year spent by so many video conferencing all day.
Neck pain, back pain, shoulder pain, that then affect people farther and throughout their entire day, because they're stuck and they're not moving.
Meeting colleagues over Zoom felt so novel a year ago when we first met Peter Flashner.
I think working from home will be a lot more of an accepted feature.
But since then,
novelty is worn off. I'd say that we've become, quite adept at this.
Normalized in movies.
Is that a glass of wine?
Yes. Yeah, it is.
By world leaders, even royalty.
Thank you, Your Majesty.
Bye.
Video chat has become a fact of life for so many, and with it, that so-called Zoom fatigue. Researchers at Stanford blame the close-up eye contact, a reduction in mobility from staying in the same spot, plus the mental strain of watching for visual cues, not to mention constantly seeing yourself in real time.
This is a huge transformation to the way we normally talk. It's like walking around with a mirror hanging in front of us.
Researchers recommend shrinking the video chat window so it doesn't take up the entire screen and turning off self-view mode as often as possible.
Even as more people get vaccinated, there's a feeling virtual meetings are here to stay, blended perhaps with in-person attendance.
If we could do hybrid, that would be just great, if that means more people are able to participate.
Did you hear him?
In the meantime, yes, some are still getting the hang of it.
Oh, I can see Thomas in the little gallery, but not on the big screen.
Oh, sorry, I was muted.
Thomas Daigle, CBC News, Toronto.
So hopefully that video kind of shows how we got to where we are now, sometimes with the Zoom fatigue and things like that. I use those tips and they're very, very helpful. Now, how we incorporate that into brain breaks is we give our class a chance to look away from technology for a second, to look away from the screen, because we want to give their brains a break from looking at the same thing. So what we do is we say, hey, you all, we're going to take 1, 2, I've given them as long as 10 minutes. And I want you, and I suggest to them, take a second, step away from the computer, whatever you're doing. Or if you're just sitting at your computer or at your desk, try to look at something other than your screen. Preferably go get fresh air or something like that, but try to look at something other than your screen. So we're actually going to do that. Okay, we're gonna do a brain break. So Liz, Megan, Jamie, I'm gonna be the first or Jamie, when you see the recording, I'm gonna be the first person ever, the first speaker ever to tell people to look away from the presentation. So we're actually gonna take a brain break for a second. It's gonna be a short one. We're gonna do about a minute or so. While we're on our brain break, do your best to just look away from your screen for a second. Try not to look at any screen. It's okay if you do. I'm not gonna chase you down, I promise. But try to look away from a screen, okay? Let's do it. We're gonna take about a minute. Just try your best to look away. I'm looking away right now. I'm just looking at different things in the room around me. Or I'm just sitting back and relaxing for a second. Thirty more seconds. All right. 3, 2, 1, 0. All right. That was a minute, and that was a short brain break. Now, hopefully, you've felt that. Hopefully, you got that opportunity to just give your mind a second and a chance to rest. Now, if you look back at your screen, which you're probably doing already, you probably feel just a tiny bit better. I'm not saying it's a complete vacation, but it'll give you a second. What I want you all to do is type one thing in the chat, one new thing you've learned into the chat. Just one new thing. Type one new thing that you've learned in the chat. Type one thing you've learned new in the chat. Type one thing that you've learned in the chat. Just one new thing that you've learned. All right. A couple of you are still typing. That's okay. We're going to talk about the fifth thing to keep learner engagement high and to do that in a virtual setting. So when you're facilitating virtually, you actually want to avoid jargon related to the technology to simulate a more in-person experience. So if you were training something, you were facilitating a class, tell me, let's see, we got Margaret, Shalise, Jim, got a few people here pointing out. Yeah, man, it can be a bit of a break. Beverly, Jim. Okay, so all of you, whoever's name I just listed, everyone here. I'm sure you facilitated classes before. Tell me something. If you were facilitating an in-person class, just think to yourself, would you say, as you were getting up to walk to the board to write something, would you say, standing up, walking over to the board, writing the letter R, right? You wouldn't say, I'm laughing, but you wouldn't really say that, as you wouldn't dictate out loud everything you're doing. So when it comes to our technology, our virtual technology that we're using to facilitate things, using jargon like, oh, I'm sharing my screen right now, I'm sharing my sound, those types of things, the person who's taking the class, who's in that meeting, they may not even understand how to do that or what that even means. Like, oh, I'm sharing my screen. Okay. Great. That's like you say, oh, that's like me saying, I'm walking up to the board now to write. You don't have to say what you're doing when it comes to virtual technology. Just do it. Y'all know the Nike slogan, just do it. Just do it. So if you're going to share your screen, that's fine. Just share your screen. If you're going to share your sound, your audio, just share your audio. If you're going to put something in the chat, just put it in the chat. Well, you can actually say that. That's kind of tough not to do, but I'm going to put something in the chat. You can't tell people that, but you want to avoid as much as possible you all using the virtual jargon when it comes to our learners, because that is something that could cause them to check out mentally. Just say that, hey, you know, this guy's talking about something I don't even know. Annotate what? Sharing his sound. I don't even know what that. I just started using Zoom. I just started using Google Meet. I don't even know. I just found out you want to avoid using that jargon, and that gets the experience as close to real life as possible. And that's very important because, again, we want to keep our learners engaged, but since we're doing it in a virtual setting, we're going to have to change up the things we do to keep them engaged. All right, so you all put me in the chat, put ME, put me, if you have a set of tools at home. Whether you have one, your spouse has one, even my son has a little play set of tools. Of course, he's 18 months old, but he has a little play set. Put me in the chat if you have tools or someone in your house has tools. Like hammer, screwdriver, anything like that. Put me in the chat. So the next thing we want to talk about is we want to actually start, and this can be a list on a, I don't care if it's on a sticky note. It can be in Google document, it could be in a notebook, a physical notebook. You want to start a list of what's called learner engagement techniques. I call it the LETT, the Learner Engagement Technique Toolkit. So there are many examples of actual techniques that you can use to increase learner engagement virtually. And a lot of these only really apply, or they don't only apply, but they help a lot more virtually because this is a whole new world for a lot of our learners as well as us. So what are some of those tools that we can use and include in our toolkit? Well, I have a few examples here, and I talk about these more in I have another kind of free gift to give you all as well at the end that'll go more in depth on these things. But some learner engagement techniques are a picture this activity. If anyone's ever done that, get a slideshow, put a lot of Google pictures on there, and you present that slideshow. And it tells a lot, and you get to talk to the class about yourself. And every learner would create one for themselves as well. Brain breaks. Brain breaks. Saying someone's name. Saying someone's name. That's an engagement technique. It's one of the best things that a person can hear, literally, in their life is their own name. So just saying someone's name as you're presenting. Slides made to cater. So this is more so towards my instructional designers, or if you make the material for your trainings, slides that have things that cater to the 4 main personality types. And there are other things as well. So those are just some examples of learner engagement techniques that we would include in our LETT, our Learner Engagement Technique Toolkit. Start to build one. You probably already have some that you use. Start to get more. Hopefully the ones I gave can add to your list, and there are other ones as well. And I'd be glad to give you more as well if you would like. So the next thing I want to talk about, or the last point right here, is verbally appreciate all virtual engagement. If anyone engages in any way, they answer a question. If they put something in the chat, thank them for doing so. By the way, thank you for everyone who put stuff in the chat. Thank you. Thank you. Because you all probably already know you all are superstars already in learning and development. But I appreciate it. It helps me to see that you all are putting things in the chat and are engaging. You all are benefiting from it as well. So you probably already knew that, but if not, you're benefiting as well, because the more engaged you are, the more connected you are, the more you will have an enjoyable learner experience in these sessions, not just mine, but all of them. So we want to appreciate all of that. Thank you for answering questions. Thank you for putting things in the chat. Thank you for annotating on the screen, whatever it might be, whatever any of your learners do, thank them for it. I remember when I used to work at agency in Memphis, Tennessee, back in 2012, and I had a supervisor. I had a lot of supervisors over my time there, but one of my favorite ones of all time, he used to do something that not many other supervisors did. He would just say to me, "I appreciate you." He would just say, "Thank you." That's all it would say. He'd say, "Hey, Washington," because we go by last name, and that's my actual last name. You are Washington. He would be like, "Washington, I appreciate you, man." And I remember I felt on top of the world because someone showed appreciation. He didn't give me a check. He didn't walk up and give me a here's your bonus check. He didn't put an event together to say, "Hey, Jay is the best worker here. Look at what he didn't do any of that." He just told me in passing, he would say, "I appreciate you." And that was one of the best things that I could have heard at that time. A lot of our learners think the same way. They want to hear, "I appreciate you." Why not give it to them when they engage? Thank them. And that's going to prompt them to want to engage more as well. So I have a gift for you all. I want everyone to take out their phone. I have a free gift for you. You don't have to. I'm not making you take out your phone. I'm not saying you must. But I do have a gift for you all that I'm going to give you for free. So I have a follow-up series to this called 7 Ways to Increase Virtual Learner Engagement. It's a video series. You can watch it at your own pace. It will only be available to those who request it. It's not available to the public. It'll just be for you when you request it. Okay. And it goes more in depth on these 7 points. Each video goes more in depth on the points that I've notated in this presentation. So get out your phone if you would like this and text your email address to the number on the screen. That's my business phone number. If you're wondering, it's not a random number. Text your email address to this phone number right here, and I will give you this free gift. Now, you don't have to do it now if you wouldn't like to. You don't have to do it at all, but I do want to offer that to you. It's free, and it's a follow-up video series. So if you would like that, get out your phone, text your email address to 423-248-2342. If somebody will put that in the chat, email address to 423-248-2342. You're going to get the 7 ways to increase virtual learner engagement follow-up video series. You'll get access to that free of charge for you all. Free of charge. Okay. Free gift for you all. Now, just to recap, this slide has all 7 points on it. We're not going to harp on this one too long. I know that Megan and Liz and Jamie are going to make the recordings available, so you'll be able to view this again. But this is a slide that has all 7 points on it, okay? That you can kind of look back at it. As you all can see, I'm very passionate about this. I really, really do enjoy virtual learner engagement. I do. I enjoy learner engagement in general, period, to create a better learner experience so that they can go out and enjoy where they're working, go out and enjoy the information, enjoy their class that they're in at that moment. I really do appreciate it, and I do like doing this. I love it. So if you know anyone who could benefit from this presentation, could benefit from hearing more about learner engagement, please meet me out at the table. I think Liz will announce which table I'll be at after. Meet me out there. Let me know. Or you can, of course, send me an email. You can see my website is on here. I also have a YouTube where I give free content. I post free content every single week on how to increase learner engagement, both virtually and in person. So feel free to check those things out. And again, if you know anyone that could benefit from this presentation, help me out and just meet me in the lounge after, the virtual lounge, if you will. And with that, I want to thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Jamie Washington. I don't think she's in here now, but Shout out to her. Me and her had the same last name. We talked about it yesterday. Thank you, Liz, for everything. And thank you, Megan, and everyone from Torrance Learning for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Jay. I did have a quick question. As far as the gift that you mentioned, since we are going to be recording this and sending it out to other people who may not have made it, will that be available for them too, or is it just for the people who attended the current session?
It's available to anyone who sends their email to that number. It's all free of charge. It's free to all of them. So anyone who watched the recording or anyone in this session.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So if anyone's watching this recording, there you have it. Make sure you catch that phone number and text Jay, and he'll send you something right over.
Yep.
Thank you so much, Jay, for being here. Once we end the session, Jay will be available in the lounge in table 1 for you to ask any questions, and you can continue the conversation there. After the session is over, Jay was our last speaker for room B, so the closing session will be in room A in about 10 minutes from now at 4:40. So everyone's welcome to go over there, and I'll also post a link in this room once I end the session. I'll post a link for everybody in case you don't have the link for room A. So thank you for joining us at the download, and we're going to go ahead and end the room B session now. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye, everyone.